Heyo everyone, Stellarism here and welcome to another coaster review. In my previous video, I reviewed TMNT Shellraiser at my home park, Nickelodeon Universe, and I've also mentioned that I've ridden that over 100 times. Well, I got some newsflash to share. For the ride I'm about to review, I've also ridden that over 100 times. Shocking, I know. But in this video, I'll be reviewing Sandy's Blasting Bronco at Nickelodeon Universe, located inside of New Jersey's American Dream Mall. Sandy's Blasting Bronco, or as I like to call Sandy for short, is a one-of-a-kind coaster at Nickelodeon Universe. This is a vertical LSM ride model built by Intamin, which features an LSM launch and 4 inversions. Essentially, this would be Intamin's version of a Premier Skyrocket 2 or Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove. Now, this ride doesn't look too much, right? Well, I'm going to analyze why that is not the case later in this video, because do not let this size fool you. This ride is themed to one of the famous characters from the very famous Nickelodeon show, Sandy Cheeks from Spongebob Squarepants. This ride originally was intended to open on October 25th, 2019, the day when this mall made its grand opening. However, this ride was not quite ready yet. Lots of inspections were still in progress, and fundamentally, there were flaws this ride suffered with. In fact, some of those flaws still affect this ride to this day, which I'll get into later in this video. A few months pass by and the ride does some test cycles, and around March, the ride looks like it's ready to open. But then the tables turn. Yeah, the mall then shuts down as the pandemic spreads worldwide. Then after 6 months of staying closed, the mall reopened on October 1st, 2020, making it the day that Sandy has finally opened to the public. Sandy is worth 6 points for one ride, which is the equivalent of $10. Now if you ask me, I think it's pretty good for its price. This ride is located at the very back of the park by the huge windows, and there will be greeted with some props including a rocket and 2 statues showing Sandy and Patrick. Now that here is the closest this ride can get with theming, but other than its name and props, that's it. Very corporate. Visually, this ride looks so cool. The layout is literally an infinity symbol, or just a figure 8, and even with the lighting package, it looks pretty at night too. But in my opinion, I don't think it comes anywhere close to Shellraiser's lighting package. Shellraiser takes the cake for the lighting package. Sorry, Sandy. Now for the ride's capacity, it's not the best when the park gets busy. When the park gets busy, lines can range from 15 to 20 minutes at most from my experience. But fortunately, if it's on a quiet day or when it's not too crowded, this ride could be a complete walk-on. Now if there's a line on a quiet day, the line would be less than 5 minutes at most. The dispatches on this ride, I will say, are also pretty good too. Usually the operations would be around less than 2 minutes, which is definitely a good thing. When going onto this ride, there's no numbers placed down for what row you can ride on, which means that whatever seat and row is available, you'll have to ride it there. Which is why in busier days, it can get tricky to ride the front row, which in my opinion is the best row. Nevertheless, the other rows are good too for different reasons. No matter where you are, you'll be dashing through these forceful elements fast, as well as getting good hang time moments. Sandy's Blasting Bronco, which I forgot to mention, also uses over-the-head lap bars, so you'll definitely get a lot more freedom, which is a huge plus. After the restraints are checked and the operators give their all clear signal, you'll then hear the ride spiel, usually around when the spiel says, "Yeehaw!" The ride launches and boom! If you thought this was a swing launch, then you thought wrong. It goes straight to the point. Sandy launches from 0 to 48 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds, which in my eyes feels way faster than that. And if you look carefully, you can see that there's LSMs on the track curving up as well, which gives a strong positive G moment when going into the Immelman. After you launch, you go right into your Immelman, offering some really good hang time when you're at the top. After that, you go into another Immelman, except this one is a bit more forceful than the first one, as this one happens to be tighter. Now, there's one thing I'll have to point out is that if you're sitting in the back row, then this is the part where the trains can get very rattly. However, the rattling is nowhere close to headache inducing, but just rather very noticeable. And the same thing goes for the front row too. It's just, if you're in the back row, the rattle can get very noticeable. Still a good element, but you know. After that, you go into your final element, which is a rollover, which offers some really good hang time before you go down. And as you exit the rollover, you roll into these brakes that slow you down back to the station. Alright, so we made it through. What happens next? Well, I'll tell you what happens next. The riders will then shout over to keep your seatbelts buckled. The ride isn't over yet. This is gonna go around one more time. One more time. One more time! Yeah, I kind of forgot that this ride can go backwards too. Well, I got news to share. If you thought this ride was over, you are truly mistaken. Once positioned back to the station, the track will then rotate 180 degrees to the right, which means that this station is a turntable station. Gee, there must be something with this park loving to pull trickeries on guests for their major coasters. You'll then hear the ride spiel, and then after that... What the f- Oh, I gotta tell you, I don't even know if this feels right. You launch 0 to 40 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds, except you're going fucking backwards. That means you'll be going around this ride again, except this time backwards. That here is a huge plus, for me at least. I know it's not for everyone, but it's a very interesting feature. After what feels like the most forceful backwards launch you've ever experienced in your life, you'll go through these 2 Immelmans and the rollover again, except facing backwards. And I can't even mention how disorienting this ride gets. Now if you're sitting in the front row, which I mentioned earlier, specifically on the right side, the experience gets insane when you're going backwards, especially on my favorite part of the ride, which is the second Immelman going backwards. Oh my God, the lateral forces on that part are no joke. It is crazy. Once this ride comes back to the station, congratulations, you completed the course again. The turntable station will then rotate 180 degrees to the left, which would then reposition back to its normal setting. What did I just ride? While this ride amazes me with what it could do, it makes me want to marathon this over and over again. Except there is one issue. Let's just say, in a broad sense, with one word, Intamin. Now I love Intamin for the rides that they make, but their reliability for most of their coasters are not the best. Especially this one right here. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, this ride has been dealing with reliability problems that still occur to this day. One of them would be the turntable station track not aligning with the other piece of track correctly. Now I'm not a ride engineer, but I can definitely see how this can be very problematic. On a daily basis, Sandy would often have downtime that would usually last around 10 or 20 minutes or even more, depending on what's going on with this ride. Usually when this happens, the maintenance team tries to get this back up and running again, which I'll have to say props to them. But one of the things I've also seen is this ride having structural issues. One of the issues I heard has to do with the noises that the train makes when traveling through certain segments of the ride. Here you can listen to how loud it can get. To me it sounds concerning, but also really cool at the same time, as it sounds like a rocket flying around. I guess Sandy's Blasting Bronco was definitely the appropriate name after all. I do not know the exact reason why it does this, but I know on certain occasions, the Zero car would be taken off and eventually put back on, which I find to be pretty interesting, because I've experienced this ride with both the Zero car on and the Zero car off, and I hardly feel any difference. At the time this video is being recorded, Sandy's currently down for annual maintenance, so hopefully by the time they get this ride back open, some of the problems can be fixed. Yeah, it may still have its flaws as it's a prototype by Intamin, but hopefully it will make a difference than before, because every time I come to this park, I always ride this. Alright, so now it's time I shall give Sandy its final score, and I'm going to give this ride a 9 out of 10. Overall, for a small concept, the outcome is an insane experience. I never get tired of this ride, and if you know me, I am a huge fanatic for Intamin coasters. Sandy is a ride that you should never underestimate. Yeah, it only has 4 inversions and a launch, but you're going upside down 8 times. Plus, the ride travels in a reverse direction after you complete the course going forwards. I do not know any other coaster that could do that, which is why I consider this ride a one-of-a-kind coaster. There are plenty of Intamin coasters with swing launches, but not this one. This is different. In terms of where I rank this, I'd say this is my #1 ride at Nickelodeon Universe, and also what I think is one of the best rides in New Jersey. TMNT Shellraiser is a really good ride, but if you ask me, I just love getting yanked when launching backwards and getting tossed in the second Immelman going backwards like a rat doll. Plus, despite Sandy has some spots that could be rattly, I find it to be far more tolerable than Shellraiser's. What are your thoughts on Sandy's Blasting Bronco? please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, because if you did, please go ahead and leave a like, comment, and consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.